So here's a wild thought for you. Russia might have a claim on Hokkaido, Japan's big northern island. Sounds completely unbelievable, right? But this isn't just some internet rumor. A top Russian politician actually said it. Today, we're going to unpack this whole geopolitical mystery. And let me tell you, the story behind it is way more complex than you'd ever guess.
Okay, let's just jump right in. This is the statement that made everybody's head turn. In April of 2022, this high-ranking Russian official, Sergey Mironov, just comes out and says some experts say that all rights to Hokkaido belong to Russia. I mean, what a shocking thing to say, especially when you consider what else was happening in the world at that exact moment.
All right, so first up, where in the world did this startling statement come from? And who exactly is making this claim on behalf of Russia?
So the man behind the statement? Sergey Mironov. And, this isn't some random person shouting on a street corner. He's the leader of A Just Russia, which is the third largest political party in the country. Plus, he's known to be a really staunch ally of Vladimir Putin. So when he speaks, it carries a lot of political weight.
And get this, Mironov didn't just say it once and walk away. Oh no, he kept escalating. On April 1st, 2022, he tweets the claim. Just a few days later, he doubles down in an interview, and then he issues this really chilling warning, basically threatening that Japan's military in Hokkaido could end up just like the Kwantung Army. That was a part of the Imperial Japanese Army that got absolutely crushed by the Soviets in World War II. And the timing here is just so crucial. All of this went down just weeks after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine kicked off. So that just begs the question, right? Where did Mironov even get this idea? It feels like it came completely out of left field. But the story seems to point to this really fascinating and mostly overlooked catalyst, a letter that was sent to the Kremlin 3 full years before any of these threats were even made. And that brings us to what at first seems like a totally unrelated event, a direct appeal made to President Putin by a citizens group representing Japan's indigenous Ainu people. So picture this, it's January 11th, 2019. A group called the Ainu Policy Review Citizens Council sends a formal letter straight to Vladimir Putin. Now, this group represents the Ainu, who are the indigenous people from the regions of Hokkaido, the Kuril Islands, and Sakhalin. And in that letter, they laid out 3 really specific demands. First, they asked Russia to establish the disputed Kuril Islands as an autonomous region for the Ainu people. Second, they wanted management rights over all the fishing resources in the area. And third, they proposed a joint environmental preservation program for the islands, working together with Japan. Okay, but this just raises a huge question, doesn't it? Why would a group of indigenous people in Japan completely bypass their own government and appeal directly to the president of Russia for autonomy and resources? Well, the answer is buried deep in the history of the region. Yeah, to really understand the logic behind this letter, we have to rewind way back. We need to look at the centuries-long history of the Ainu people, who've basically been caught between these 2 massive, powerful nations for ages. This timeline here shows this long history of the Ainu being caught in the middle. I mean, for centuries, they faced pressure from the north. Way back in the 13th century, it was Mongol expansion that pushed them south from Sakhalin down into Hokkaido. Then, you fast forward to the 19th century, Russian influence is growing, and Ainu leaders actually turned to Japan's Edo shogunate looking for protection. Okay, now let's jump way forward to the modern era. And here it is. This is probably the most critical piece of the whole puzzle. In December 2018, Vladimir Putin officially recognizes the Ainu as an indigenous people of Russia. And then, just 1 month later, that Ainu citizens group sends their letter of appeal. That timing, it's almost certainly not a coincidence, right? And this is where the story really takes a sharp turn, connecting that historical appeal from an indigenous group directly to the geopolitical threats that were made in 2022. So let's break down this potential connection. On one side, you've got the 2019 Ainu petition, which is seeking Russian support based on, real historical grievances. Then on the other side, 3 years later, you have a high-level Putin loyalist using historical context to justify a claim on Japanese territory. The implication here is pretty clear. One might just be a pretext for the other. And this leads us to the really critical question in all of this. Is Russia opportunistically using the legitimate historical grievances of the Ainu people as a kind of weapon, a political tool to pressure and threaten Japan? In political science, there's actually a term for this. It's called a trial balloon. It's when a government has an official make a really controversial statement, just to test the waters, to see how their own public, and maybe more importantly, how their adversaries are going to react, all without officially committing to the policy just yet. And just to add another layer of mystery to this whole thing, the original webpage from that Ainu citizens group, the one that actually hosted this very letter to Putin, it's recently been deleted. It's just gone, erasing a key piece of the digital trail.
So, what does all of this mean for today? Because this isn't just some historical curiosity. It's being interpreted as a very current and very direct warning to Japan.
Yeah, according to the source, this wasn't just empty talk. It's widely seen as direct retaliation for Japan's decision to join the Western sanctions against Russia after the invasion of Ukraine. It's a way of sending a message, loud and clear, you have vulnerabilities too. So this entire strange sequence of events leaves us with a really provocative and honestly unsettling question. By linking these historical grievances to modern conflicts, has Russia just signaled that Hokkaido, a place long considered undisputed Japanese territory, could become a new geopolitical flashpoint? Well, only time will tell.